Avoir. All right, we are rolling. Welcome to another episode of FitPet Boston Talks. My name is Leah Lori. I am the host of the show. And today I am joined by my wife, partner, Lori Lodato.
Hello.
And Jamie Whitbeck of the Mindful Dog Walker.
Hey, guys.
Who has been on the podcast a couple times before. I'm always happy to sit with Jamie. She is now, I could say, a friend of mine.
Aw, thank
you. We've definitely connected over the years, and I believe she is a very talented dog handler and has 3 wonderful dogs. Always happy to sit with her. And we are doing a Q&A today. So we got some questions from our clients. We have some questions from you, our listeners, and we're going to go ahead and answer the questions that we think have as much to do with the broadest audience. So I did get some questions that were a little bit more specific or kind of joking, but
what were the joking ones?
We did those out. Somebody asked that they just want to hear funny client stories.
Oh,
but you know that's always a slippery slope on
I feel
the
like that's like
on the
sitting
recording.
down over dinner with a drink, kind
yeah,
of.
Agreed.
Yeah, that can get messy. Everyone will be saying, "Was that me? Was that me?"
Right. So I tried
Yes,
to pick the professional ones that would keep everybody's anonymity intact.
Okay, maybe we'll set a password for the stories.
We
can
could
only access those.
Yeah, like OnlyFans for
OnlyFans for dog training.
Forget about
Boston
Patreon,
Talks.
folks. We're doing OnlyFans.
Yes, sir. You won't find out about your nasty habits of your neighbors. You have to pay for that shit.
Before we get started, I did want to talk to Jamie a little bit about what she's been doing with her dogs. Talk to Lori about her weekend last weekend and this weekend, and review a little bit of frisbee stuff I've been doing with Ruben. So what I'm going to do for this podcast is on the show notes, wherever you're listening, I'm going to go ahead and say the question and the minute at which the question appears. So if you asked a question and you just want to hear the answer, you can go ahead and just listen to the answer without listening to our preamble. But I would like to hear first how you're doing, Jamie. I know you've been doing a lot of GRC stuff with your dogs, and I would love to kind of just see how things are going.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, I'm really happy to be here with you guys, so thank you for having me. I die in my car listening to the Lori Leah episodes, so it's just as good in person, so thank you. I've been doing a lot of GRC. I've been getting all my dogs into GRC.
GRC, for people who don't know?
Yeah, GRC stands for Gameness, Relationship, and Control. It is a sport that J-Jack up in Portland, Maine, if you're nearby, you should go check him out. He's great.
Portland, Maine.
Yeah, it's a bit of it's like 2.5 hours, but it's a sport that he created to kind of emulate like the bite sports. So like your German Shepherd, Rottweiler type sports, but for the pit bull, bully breed type dogs. So there's control around the games and the things that those types of dogs are bred to enjoy doing. So jump up, most of people with pit bull type dogs. Nobody really has pit bulls, but the mixes, but they all like to jump up. Everybody's like, make my dog stop jumping on things. That's what they're bred to do. So jump up, bite, hold, do that kind of stuff.
They just can't bite hold people.
Exactly. Because
it's a sport people.
Yeah, no, we're talking about like toys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no people. They generally like people. It's part of the standard. But yeah, so I've been doing a lot of that. So just like with the Schutzhund type sports, there is an entrance like obedience test. So similar to the BH, there's the SR1. So that's a big thing that we spend a lot of time working on in addition to the actual games. So this morning we had a mock trial. There's a trial, an officially sanctioned trial in December that we're prepping for. So we ran through. I was actually the judge today. It was a really nice jump into
nice.
that. Yeah. So
I didn't know this stuff. Do tell. I didn't know this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fun. So I started doing that. I just got the test I'm going to try to be a judge. So we'll see what happens, help grow the sport a little bit because it's a fairly new sport. But we did the test this morning. It was a really, really good turnout. We had 12 dogs show up for SR1. We had a dog show up for SR2 because there's different levels. So varying gets a little bit more difficult as you go up the ranks there.
What does SR1 entail?
Yeah, so SR1, it stands for social responsibility, level 1. So it's a little bit different than your typical like obedience stuff. So it's not like AKC healing type, fronts and middles and stuff like that. As leash obedience. So the first section, there's 3 sections. The first section is going to be does the dog understand the leash, right? So we're not looking for a heel, anything that is actual the default obedience. So if you walk in the ring and you tell your dog to heel, you will actually lose points. The ideal picture is that your dog understands how to stay under control within the bubble of the leash. So if they hit the end of the leash, do they know what to do with that? Do they lean into it, or do they kind of come back into your circle a little bit? You walk up, you greet 3 different people that are in the ring that you don't know. Obviously, they're not allowed to jump on anybody. You stop, say, hi, how are you? You move on to the next. Does the dog go with you? Do they linger? Is there a lot of leash pressure? So you'll lose points for that sort of stuff. If the dog pulls you off your feet, you'll lose points for that. Actually, if it pulls you off your feet, you will foul out for that particular trial day. Figure 8. So there's uprights. So that you have to kind of do 3 figure 8s around the uprights. So does your dog know how to handle leash tangles? So are they going to get tangled up and think about like mailboxes? Like if you're walking with a dog past a mailbox and they like get caught around and you have to fish the leash around. Okay. Does your dog know what to do with that sort of stuff? So
without any cues.
Without any cues. So you walk in, this is all without cues. The next section, no verbals. You can tell your dog good job, nice job, good decisions, right? But once you walk in,
good decisions.
I say that to my dogs all the time. All the time. Good choices, man.
That's a good choice, sir.
Good job. all the time. It's horrible. I look at Charlie, my more reactive of my 3, and I go, he starts to get a little worked up. I go, make good choices, man. Make good choices. Wow. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. And he tamps it down a little bit. It's really funny. But yeah, so that's section 1 is leash handling, leash responsibilities. Okay. Section 2 is actual obedience. So
SR2. SR2.
SR1, section 2. So there's 3 sections.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
So I should also mention you start at 100 points and you have to have a 70 to get your title.
Okay.
So
that's the usual.
Yeah,
70 or above.
Pretty standard. So you have your obedience, you have your call to middle. So it's a relative position like heel. So you have to be able to step forward, pivot in both directions, and have your dog maintain without having to re-cue them, which is different than rally. When you call to front, you can re-cue them as many times as you need.
So middle is front to you?
Nope, middle and front. Middle is between the legs.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like head at your crotch.
Yep, it's a real nice
position. Which is comfortable for everyone once you say it out loud, isn't it? It's just...
when it's really useful?
You want your dog in between your legs staring at you.
Where it's really useful is when random strangers want to come up and pet your dog. And you put them in middle.
Yeah, because then they have to pet your crotch in order to say hi.
They have to ask for permission. Turns into
Do they ask for permission?
Difficult. This is a difficult conversation. I don't know if we can broach this right now.
Yeah. So
dog world, and then all of a sudden we're asking permission.
So there's middle, call to middle. The dog, you take a step forward, you pivot left, you pivot right, you down your dog. There's a 2-minute down with distractions. So out of sight, a neutral dog. It could be food. It could be a toy, something. Just normal, basic distractions. Then you call your dog to front. Same thing. You step backwards. You pivot left. You pivot right. At some point, you reattach your leash. Could be at any point. So basically, the idea is that your dog doesn't think just because you unclip the leash that they are free to run around. Time. Exactly. That's your section 2, and then section 3 is liberty. So they have 2 minutes of liberty. Does your dog know how to be calm and relaxed, not under orders for 2 minutes? So they are free in the ring or tethered.
It's really hard. Everybody fails in the beginning. It has a very low pass rate.
I passed. Well, I should say, I failed with Eddie. The first time I was convinced. I was like, no problem. I'll teach him the obedience. I do leash walking with this dog all day long. You want to know where I 30 points in the first section. I lost 30 points. In the first, I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh, well, I guess I should have looked at the leash skills that I have, because I was convinced, but it had been COVID. I hadn't been near people in so long that we got in the ring. So
people that threw Eddie off.
Oh, he's so excited about people.
He wanted to make out with them.
Of course. And he's bouncing off the end of the leash.
I can't relate, but I can see where Eddie could be coming from as a people.
He and I don't see eye to eye on that one, but yeah. But yeah, so it's actually a really difficult test. We actually today, We didn't have anybody pass. They either all pointed out or they had fouls. Yeah, it's
it's notoriously difficult test because it really is focusing on, proofing your behavior so they become habituated, right? So it's like once the leash goes on, does your dog just know what to do rather than you have to instruct your dog? It's very, very challenging.
That would be interesting to do.
Yeah, it's
all breeds can do it, just pits.
All breeds. They even have a muzzle provision, so you can go in and get your SR M, so SR1 with a muzzle. You still can't compete in the drive sports, but you can get like that title with a muzzle on your dog if you feel. Yeah, I mean, if you want to compete in the sports, you have to do it without a muzzle, but it allows you to compete.
Yes, our clients that are listening with bully breeds, who I have mentioned the dog sport to before, please perk up your ears.
It's a lot of fun. It's a great community. The sports are weird and fun. Like
can you convince Jen Banks to come on the podcast?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
she would be somebody that would have a lot to offer people that aren't familiar with these types of things, and give a different perspective on the bully breeds.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, she's awesome. So it's her club is the one I go to.
Bay State.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's wall climb, spring pole, mill races, and weight pull. So obviously weight pull is pretty self-explaining, right? They pull weight for a set period, distance, and that's
looks like a body sled, right?
Yeah.
Just for the people listening.
Exactly.
So you can't compete in the sport part of it until you get your SR1.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And then as you go up in the levels of the drive sports, it gets a little bit more difficult as well when it comes to like obedience. So you're responsible for more and more obedience on your dog. So that's where it's a little bit different.
To have an actual heel.
Yeah, you have to actually be able to walk your dog in, with loose leash responsibility. They have to be able to down at the line. It depends on the level you're working at, but yeah.
This is a whole new world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
You should check it out, Lori. I've thought about it before, but it's like it's another thing. We have a lot of things going on right now.
I don't think you guys have enough. Let me give you something else.
I can't do one more thing, but it's nice to know about.
It's a lot of fun. And honestly, like the cool thing is because none of my dogs are, one of my dogs is old and is like post-cancer and limping on 3 legs right now. He's a hot mess. One of them just doesn't care for the sports, but he loves to do obedience. Mm-hmm. So I'm working on towards his SR2, which is a little bit more, it tests the dogs a lot more. I'll hopefully try to work towards his SR3 eventually, but we'll see where that goes. And then so you have other options, so you can still be a part of like the community and work and play the games if you want to, but you can work towards your obedience stuff if you want in a safe environment as well. So
I think that also is a cool thing, that the environment is understanding of different types of dog personalities. So
Absolutely.
In a lot of these dog sports, if your dog has aggression, it's like they're out. There's no place for them. And I do think it's a cool thing that this particular discipline has space for dog aggressive dogs. If you as a handler are able to step up and say, I'm going to work towards trying to get as much control as I can and, habituate these behaviors and, change their perspective, which takes a long time for some dogs. So I think that's just it's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking a moment to explain. Lori, what have you been up to with the boo the past couple of weekends?
Yesterday, feels like forever ago. So yesterday morning in Springfield, we got our third 3 out of 20 legs needed towards our rally championship.
So how many more do you need?
I need 17.
Oh,
triple. You need total 20 total triple Qs.
So you need 17 times 3.
No, I need 17 more. I have 3 triple Qs right now. And so
yeah, but a triple Q is 3 runs that all qualify.
3 runs all qualifying, 70 or above, but then you need high scores to make sure that those points go towards your rock.
Yeah.
So we did that. I was excited. It was under a different judge.
Awesome.
I was by myself, so I felt pretty good about it. I felt like of course, I get competitive, and I wish the score was higher. But after going through it and seeing the judge and scribbling away on those papers for everybody, I said, "All right, we did pretty good." And then we got high in trial for all 3.
Congratulations.
So, yeah,
That's
psyched.
awesome.
And then the weekend before that, I was at a Schutzen seminar, and it was 4 days, and we did tracking, protection, and obedience. And I learned a lot of different dogs there. There was another Rottweiler there, a lot of Shepherds, no Mals. I know.
That's shocking.
Bouviers
Doberman.
and a Beaucheron.
Beaucheron.
Yeah.
What's your
Doberman.
favorite part of like that? Is it tracking, or what do you like the best?
Right now, I would just say, I'd say obedience without the dumbbell and protection.
Cool.
Because I'm struggling in particular points. But when I saw it out, I went to this seminar to ask myself, is this something that you want to do? Is this an attainable goal? And because I already have my BH, I could just go for my tracking title, and I could just go for a protection title. You're allowed to do that, and so I might do that.
Nice.
But many things have to change in my dumbbell retrieval for me to even feel comfortable to walk on the field. I don't want to look like a chooch out there. I don't want to look like an idiot. You want your dog to know everything before you go out there. If something happens on the day of the trial, maybe something's happening with your dog that day, you want it to be the dog. You don't want it to be because you weren't prepared and you threw yourself into a situation where you're not ready.
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
I think my biggest takeaway was, as any seminar or any time you talk to another trainer, be open to new ideas. Always keep trying. And then in the end, no matter who's training you or whatever expert is working with your dog, in the end, you are the only one that knows your dog, especially if you have a relationship with them. So no matter what, if you've been working with your dog, not somebody who's new to it or green, but you've really put in your time, you know what's good for your dog. So make sure that you take that information and mold it to how you could use it for the better. That's what I would say about my whole experience there. And I will keep trying. And in the fall of next year, I hope to either get a tracking or protection title. Yeah.
Nice.
That's what I say
And
about that.
can you talk about who taught the seminar?
It was Thomas, and I can't say his last name. I'm worried I'm going to butcher it.
Well, try.
I don't know enough. I don't know enough about
It was Thomas, and what was his wife's name?
Heike.
From Germany.
She's pretty cool.
So they flew in from Germany to teach the seminar.
Yes.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yep. And they're wonderful. And he has a very nice way about him. He's very calm. He gave constructive criticism without insulting. And sometimes when you're in a situation like that and you might feel slightly insecure about your work with your dog, it's nice if somebody just gives you information. Like, don't tell me anything else. Just, this is what I saw. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, let's fix it. This is how we can work on that. So I just like the way he taught. I felt comfortable with him handling the dog. I felt comfortable because I've only felt comfortable with Steve really being a decoy for Buddha, because they don't throw him into defense. And he said to me the first day, he said, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want from this dog, and give me like one sentence that describes your relationship with your dog. And I told him what Buddha did, that he does AKC obedience. He's a therapy dog. He has his titles. He does rally. I said, first and foremost, he's my companion. And like I said to Jamie, it was, when I got Buddha, I didn't think that I would do any of these things with him just because I just didn't think I would. And I said, don't put him in defense.
Yeah.
As much as you can, don't make this all about defense. Like, it might get peppered in, but it can't be all about that. And he said, okay. And then we worked with the dog, and he worked with my with what I had said. And yeah, I felt good about him handling my dog. You should always feel that way when any trainer that touches your dog. And if you don't, just leave instead of letting the whole situation take place and then you think about it after. But if you have like an odd feeling, and you can step away for a minute and always go back. So I say that in the beginning of my classes too. If anything I do makes you uncomfortable, then you just tell me in the moment and we can fix it, change it, whatever. Or you can tell me to go pound sand.
Yeah, or ask about it too. Like if you have questions about something that's happening or you don't understand why it is, like ask a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's nice when you're receiving instruction as a dog handler from somebody who doesn't have some sort of authority complex, because when you're in a role as a teacher, it's always easy to make the student look stupid. Like it doesn't matter it could be me trying to train somebody that is like a prolific dog trainer. But if I'm in the seat where I am authority, I have the ability to make that person look stupid. I just do, because that's the dynamic of the relationship. So it's always nice to go into a teaching moment with a trainer and have them ask really genuine questions and be able to reach you where you're at with your dog and respect that, which I thought was cool. And you were there for 4 days. I mean, you had to be able to like the guy.
Well, Buddha
it's funny, a long weekend.
Buddha was healing. He doesn't like if I pass Buddha off to somebody else, he won't listen to them really. So it was kind of funny to see Buddha prancing like some fancy show dog in a beautiful heel next to him. I was like, I guess you have a new daddy. I don't know. Like I was like, what's going on? He looks so pretty. I looked over to the side at all my buddies. I'm like, what's happening right now? Why do you care about him? But it was nice in a moment to be like, here, you take him. You tell me what you think. So it was nice. And him and his wife, in Germany, they take a bunch of dogs, train them, title them, give them back.
Yeah.
Sell them with a title, or they train the dog to compete with their owner.
Cool.
Or they'll just tell a parent, this dog can do it, this one can't, this one, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And they were there for the trial today, because you went up there again today and a bunch of people competed.
They did 2 4-day seminars there. So I went for the first weekend and then they had a second round. I can only imagine he's exhausted.
Yeah,
working all
that's
the dogs.
A lot.
And there was another Rottweiler there.
Cool.
There's never any Rottweilers anywhere. There was another Rottweiler in my trial this weekend. Again, never happens. She wasn't shown in my class, but I'm used to being the only Rottweiler there.
Yeah. It's hard to find good ones these days.
Which is like not always good, because if my performance isn't that great, they remember me because I'm always there.
Yeah, and you're the only one.
Yeah.
I know those shepherds, I can't even tell the differences. Just everyone is a shepherd. I'm like, well, that one looks slightly darker.
There's a lot of border collies, Australian shepherds, golden retrievers.
Like you mean generally?
They're in the AKC rally.
Oh,
events.
in the AKC rally, yeah.
Or AKC obedience.
Well, in disc, they're all border collies. I can't tell the difference between any of them.
I'm
terrible.
loving border collies lately.
Really?
Yeah.
Just a bunch of Oreos flying through the air.
I like
Pretty
the brown
much.
ones.
Oh, you like the liver?
The liver colored ones. Yes, I do.
That's
Liver.
funny.
I know.
Should we get into these questions?
Well, you didn't tell us about you and Ruben.
Yeah.
Oh.
Lady.
Throw us
what
on
have
the
we
hot
been
seat.
doing?
My goodness.
We finished toss and fetch today. Had to change my strategy a little bit. I spent the entire summer practicing frisbee with Ruben and by myself to improve my long throws. And I did, in fact, improve my long throws. In fact, all the throwing all around improved. And then Ruben decided that he wasn't going to retrieve if I threw a long throw. So it turns out that he really excels at the shorter throws. And so we have done a bunch of updog games. We did 3 days of updog. Got my 3 bronze medals for 3 different games.
Yay.
Which I can now apply for an AKC title, a disc dog title.
Oh, cool.
So I'm psyched about that.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That a
thank
big deal?
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Look
is.
at my little Ruben.
She wasn't even going to tell us about it.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm psyched. So I just have to like
it
put
locked
some
up
paperwork
inside.
in for him. And again, the updog games are great. They're short games. They're fast. I would say the toughest part about those games is just as a handler knowing the rules so that I don't make mistakes in the moment, and also know like how many points I'm trying to get and like what can like achieve the most points per game, because there's a lot of nuance there. So I think just in the last 4 times that I've played, I've actually like tried to strategize with the games that I choose, and he's doing really well he's doing exceptionally well, and the better I can throw, the easier he can catch, so there's no surprise there. But I worked all summer to improve my long game, thinking that with toss and fetch I would be able to get the frisbee out there farther for him, collect more points. And the first week that we did toss and fetch, he really struggled to come back on the long throw. Like he would catch it out there or not and just kind of pause and like stare out into space for a few seconds, and then he'd retrieve. And then he does have a little bit of possession issues. So, you want the dog to come back to have a nice soft mouth, give the disc and throw it again. And it's like the harder he works, the more he wants to hold on to that thing.
I mean, don't we all?
So, right.
The harder we work,
makes sense.
We want to
Total
hang
sense.
on to it.
It makes complete sense. And then when you're on the
kind of
field,
endearing.
there's this like, pressure from the crowd because the crowd is on either side and I'm stressed. So I was not only having trouble with the retrieve, I was also having trouble with the trade.
Letting go of the frisbee.
Out. Yeah, the out.
To throw the other one.
Yeah, and it wasn't anything dire. It was just that seconds would go by. Like he always gives it up. I don't have to even put any pressure on him really. It's almost like the game not continuing. Eventually he does like give it up, but you only have a certain amount of time. So after the second week or the third week, and then I missed a week, but anyway, I said, okay, I'm going to go back to the drawing board. I'm going to go back to throwing short throws. And then on my last throw, I'm going to throw long. And today
to get more points.
It really paid off. Yeah. He caught all his catches.
Awesome.
I threw long on the last one. He caught it and then he had his little parade out there and I was like, okay, fine. Like we're out of time anyway. So I think it was just kind of a situation where it was like me wanting something that he wasn't really able
you
to
were just going for the long
achieve.
throws.
Yeah.
Ruben only wanted the short ones.
Well, he can certainly catch them.
Yeah, but
then after he does that, it's the retrieve is. I mean, it was really bad.
Him coming back.
Him coming back. There's
Does he
coming
slow
back.
down or does he kind of take detours?
He just stands there. Oh. He literally was just catching it and standing there, and then he was looking around, and then one time on the second week I think we played, he dropped the frisbee. Started like walking around. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I'm like running out onto the field to encourage him to pick it up, which he did, and then he came back. But he's far away from me. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, if he feels disconnected from me at that length, like
and everybody's watching you run out to the dog.
Yeah, here I am, Leah the dog trainer, running out to her dog to get the thing to. So it's really just a matter of like knowing strengths and weaknesses and figuring him out, and then strategizing based on his strengths and weaknesses. And like today with the short throws, like not a single problem with the out. Racked up points at the end. Took my time through, and it worked out. So it's been a learning process for him and I, but he's doing phenomenal, and he. It's a good stress relief for him as well and gives us something to work for. I also wanted to shout out my friend Brittany with her dog Phantom because she's the one that even told me that you could get an AKC title for Updog. I didn't even know that you could. So if you compete in Updog, they are connected, which I think is cool and legitimizing. But great community with the Updog. Boston Area Disc Dogs is the name of the club that does the Updog events. So if you're into frisbee, check them out. And so
Leah
that's
literally goes over the strategy while she's sleeping. I can almost hear her talking about frisbee. You know what? You know what I'm going to do, hon? You know what I'm going to do the next time? This is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to, these are the throws I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to, and I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Leah never sleeps.
Then every Sunday,
I sleep like a log.
The crazy time that we all get up to go to dog sports. I was up at 5 to drive to Springfield.
Yeah,
you were up this morning.
I was up. It's so funny. So my Updog friends were asking me about toss and fetch. You all already heard this story, but they're asking me about toss and fetch, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm like, it's pretty early on Sunday morning. I'm not going to be able to make the Updog event in the afternoon. My dog will be pooped. Yada yada." I'm like, well, what time does toss and fetch start? I'm like, 7 a.m. The lady like whips her head around. She's like, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time? Like, why are you meeting that early? I'm like, well, there's now like 35 dogs on the roster because it's become really popular. So Got to get through everybody.
Take some time.
It takes some time to get through everybody, but I appreciate everyone who runs that. Super nice people. Okay.
Very good.
We got to get into these questions because
It's not too bad.
it may take us a second here. Okay. So, first question here, again from our clients, listeners, is how do I reduce puppy biting when feeding during training?
I'll let Jamie go.
Okay, so
our
let's
guest.
let
Oh my
Jamie
gosh.
start out here.
Cool. So, I mean, nothing like being on the spot. No, but I mean, I think for puppy biting, I think part of it is how you're holding the treat. That's a big part of it. I think a lot of people like
You mean presentation?
presentation of the treat, Leah. That's correct. I think,
Wow.
oh my
Look
gosh.
at you kids.
There's something to it. Like you talk about like leash skills, like people don't talk about like treat delivery skills and like how you can use that to kind of maneuver where your dog is.
Absolutely.
They stick their little fingers together, little like crab pinchers, and
No,
they
don't do that.
Don't do that. I'm just describing what people are doing. That's
What
what's
is
getting
this
them built.
Universal capiche?
Capiche.
Oh, yeah,
Don't
yeah.
do the capiche.
Don't do the
The
capiche.
capiche. Yeah, don't do that. I'm just describing what's probably getting you bit. Like pinching the treat between like your, your thumb and your forefinger, and you're like, why am I getting bit? Well, you're sticking. I'd
Yeah.
probably bite you too. Like if you presented me food that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the big one. The best way. I mean, there's a couple ways.
Presentation.
Presentation.
Number one.
So give us some ways
Number
to
two.
present the food that
What
is...
was the next thing you were going to say, though?
Was there another thing I was going to say?
There
I
was.
forgot.
You were-
Shit. I mean, shoot.
You can say shit on the
You
podcast.
can- yeah, you can say shit.
I've
it's
said
okay.
much worse. I said
Okay,
the
good.
F word, if you will.
Ooh, I'm going to try
F-word,
not
if you
to.
will.
I'm going to do my best not to. Well, I think some of it is also making sure that your dog's actually like fulfilled before you like play with your dog. Do something that's not food related. Maybe before you do that type of an activity. That would be something that I would also be doing is if your dog is either overtired because they need a nap, you might be getting bit a little bit. That might not even be
Okay.
like when you're training the dog. That might just be
State of the dog.
yeah.
State of mind.
I mean, that's something to consider as well because it's not just there's more to it than just like popping food in the dog's face, I think. And then does your dog like have this abundance of energy too? There's the other end of the spectrum where they can't even think and they're just chomping at your hand for no good reason because they just need to get the energy out.
Maybe they need to party before they focus.
Yeah.
I'm thinking a lab puppy might be a puppy that would do something like that.
Yeah.
If overstimulated and you try to do some training, food luring or something
Whoa.
like that.
Yeah.
Golden retriever.
So,
Yeah.
Laurie, do you want to talk a little bit about types of ways that you can present the food that would be a little bit better than like
The
pinching
capiche.
or the capiche?
I also think that parents tend to, if they're healing with the dog, instead of just delivering the treat, they dangle their hand in the air next to them the whole time in the pincher,
Oh, and then the dog
in
like
the
jumps
hand
at them.
pinch
Yeah.
position.
Yeah.
And so they're like, he keeps jumping. And that's because you're holding your hand in your little pincher position and you're just dangling it there and you never give the food. So the food reinforcement schedule is nil. It's one thing if you're holding like a cheese stick in your hand and the dog can just keep chewing from your hand. So if you keep it between what's that?
The Spock hands.
The Spock hand.
Spock hands. So if you keep the
Yeah.
cheese like that and you keep the food down, well, the dog will just keep funneling through the cheese. You haven't used the little pincher fingers. So sometimes your rate of reinforcement sucks so bad that the dog keeps jumping up. And then
Frustrated.
when the dog jumps, the parent tends to wake up and feed. And so they're actually teaching that jump up bite position. And then parents always go, okay, no more. And then they do jazz hands to show the dog they don't have food.
It's
They're
like
like,
blackjack.
no more hand, no more food. And I'm like, oh my God. And so they bring more attention to their hands. And so many times you'll see the owner put their hand up. It happened last week. The owner took her hands and dangled them in front of the dog's nose and was squishing the dog's nose. And the dog started mouthing him. And I go, stop it. And right away, she just stopped moving. I go, stop it. Whatever you're doing with your hands, stop it. Because she's dangling them. So stop presenting your fingers to the dog's face would be the number one thing. Don't just imagine me we're working together and you're just shoving your fingers in my nose. That is a rather unpleasant experience.
I agree.
And don't let
Yeah.
the dog activate you to give the treat. Make
Yeah.
sure that you're reinforcing at a regular rate, or you're funneling that long piece of food through your hand, and no pincher hands. What else was I supposed to say besides stop sticking fingers in your dog's mouth?
Okay,
and
I will
nose?
talk about how to
and
present
jazz
the
hands.
food a little bit better. So there's
don't
a
like my
couple of
Spock?
things. I thought that was a great monologue about.
We'll
how
talk
not
about
to
this later
feed.
off the podcast. That's nice of you, honey.
One thing to piggyback off of what Laurie just said, something that I often see people do is pet their dog as soon as they deliver the food. So if we're doing a click feed for sit or whatever, like any behavior that we're doing, we're trying to reinforce a behavior, right? We click, the food reward comes, we're getting ready for our next rep, and the owner starts, oh, he's such a good boy, and starts petting the dog.
Is he though?
Which is cool. Like, pet your dogs. I love petting. But there's something to be said for just being kind of in like training work mode and getting the job done. And if you feed and then your dog is expecting pets afterwards, it just it interrupts the flow. I feel like it interrupts the flow. B, like my dog personally, Ruben, if we're in training mode, he does not want to be pet.
They back up. He backs up.
Yeah,
Ruben
I
backs
actually
up.
I took some video the other day where I was I'm muzzle conditioning Ruben, and I thought, okay, we're reinforcing behaviors with the muzzle on. It's helping him forget that it's there. It's working. He's on place. He's sitting. He's laying down. And I'm at the point where occasionally he will try to paw the muzzle off of his face still, but it's becoming less frequent because he's normalizing it. We're doing it a lot. But I thought to myself, oh, well, I'll just pet him a little bit, and that will kind of calm him down and keep him from pawing his face. And he literally is like shirking away from me, looking side to side, like, why aren't we working? What are you doing? Why are you petting me? This is not pet mode. This is work mode. Like, let's move it along. Come on, keep it going.
Eddie dodges my hand like I abuse him. He thinks there's food in my hand. He's trying to get the food out of my hand if I try to pet him in these instances.
Yeah,
And I
so
know it's awful.
You're right.
So I think that
They follow your hand up thinking there's a snack in there.
It literally looks like he's dodging me, like I've been beating him for days or
Which
something. It's
you
great.
probably have.
Obviously.
Laurie.
I'm kidding.
It's just kidding.
All that to say, can you use pets to reinforce your dog? Sure, if your dog finds it rewarding, you can use petting.
Buddha does.
Every time I call my dogs back in the woods, I don't always feed them. Sometimes I pet them, and they're cool with it. Some of my dogs really like that. But when you're trying to like teach a new behavior, or bond with a puppy or whatever, like just skip that part. Skip the petting. And also, it's introducing your hands in a way that I don't think is always super constructive when you're trying to train, right? So you're trying to teach your puppy to respect your hands, not to bite your hands, and then you go shoving them in their face to pet them, and they kind of do like the nips to whatever. Don't pet your dog when you're training for now. But presentation of the food, one thing that I like to do is put the food in my hand and close my hand. When the dog stops trying to get the food, I will open my hand.
I love that one.
So that they can get the food. Obviously, it's going to reduce a little bit of drive to get your dog to follow your hand, but they can follow your hand without chomping on your hand. Okay, like put that in your mind. I like to do that. I like to put the treat in between my fingers. So I'll open my hand and put it in between my fingers, in between my index finger and my middle finger, especially for puppies that are super nippy because they physically cannot bite a flat hand. If they do, like, you got to check yourself. Or maybe you're using the wrong kind of treats. I don't know. But, pick a treat that will fit in between your fingers. You can pick a treat. Also, I like to do it between my thumb and my forefinger. That's also a really good spot for a treat. And after your dog eats the treat, just take your hand away. Again, no need to put your hand in their face and pet them. Give them an
know
opportunity.
that there's nothing left in there.
Yeah, all done. Nothing, move on to the next repetition.
No food.
Yeah. So I know that puppies, and that's the other thing I want to mention too. Puppies are nippy. They bite.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seriously, please stop calling us and telling us your 3-month-old puppy is nippy. We know it will go away. I promise.
Unless
You somehow
Unless you're a
stupidly
psychopath.
reinforce it.
and
but
you've been holding the dog's muzzle shut and you've been pissing them off, and then the dog gets defensive, so they're trying to get to your hand before you put your hand around their muzzle. That's a whole different story, and we can always tell when parents have been doing that because the dog's a complete tool, and he doesn't like, as soon as he even sees the hand approaching, he's running for the hills. So don't do that.
Yeah, don't
Don't
hold
put your hand on the
muzzle
dog's
shut.
muzzle. Keep it shut as a way to stop the biting. It doesn't work. They just hate your hands. Then your little kid goes up and tries to pet the dog, and guess what? They don't like your little kid's hand either. Oh my God.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we covered that one aptly. Check.
Anyway, I
Good
digress.
job,
So
ladies.
anyway, the next question, boss, is...
I feel so sad for
It's true,
those
though.
dogs right now. Yeah.
But don't you see that, right, Jane?
Yeah.
What are you
Okay.
doing?
Along the same lines as puppy, I'm going to let Lori answer this question. How often should I crate my puppy?
It's just when you gave me this question, I'm like, all day, every day.
Yeah,
No.
well, we've done quite a
I'm
bit of
just-
chatting about crating
It's not
dogs.
all day. I know. We talk about it all the time. Everyone knows I'm a huge crate advocate. And so I just say periodically throughout the day.
Mm.
I mean, and so people will say, well, how many minutes per hour? I don't know.
Live your life. Put them in there when you can't
20
watch
minutes
them.
of every hour. I mean, even more. I would take them out 20 minutes per hour. So that's how, and I wouldn't leave a puppy alone for more than 2 hours in the crate. And they're going to sleep in there all night long. And if your puppy is going to bed at 10 and waking up at 5, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hallelujah.
So count your blessings. So
Yeah.
definitely at nighttime and periodically throughout the day, and maybe 20-minute sessions with your dog per hour of freedom. And don't leave them out in the house loose all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's-
never going to work
It's
out.
always easier to teach what you want than fix the stuff they learned to do when you weren't watching.
Right.
Amen.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a
I
good thing
missed church
Jamie's
today.
here.
I'm so glad Jamie came.
Yeah. Take me to church.
It was so funny today. Someone was playing with one of those balls like with holes in them. Holy rollers. what
Oh,
do we
I
call
love
them.
those. You don't know
I didn't,
Holy Roller?
I didn't know. No, you do. I didn't know they were called holy rollers.
They have the
and
octagon cutouts.
yeah, one of the guys like holy rollers. That's the only thing I want to play with on a
Yeah.
Sunday.
Got to see a picture of this.
Yeah, they're like plastic, really lightweight. Puppies love them.
Oh, they're like really squishy.
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I know what
They're
they
different
are.
They're from
sizes.
JW.
They're
A
great.
lot of toys are from JW.
JW Pet Whole
see.
Roller Dog Toy. Color varies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you
as
can-
it turns out, I do know what those are.
Yeah, you can put
Yeah.
little stuffed animals.
Your
in
dogs
the-
would probably destroy them.
Oh,
in 35
they don't
seconds.
exist in my house, but
Yeah.
I know what they are.
Well, don't leave them down because the dogs really can chew them. Like, and just
Yeah.
rip pieces off. But if you want to, sometimes I'll put tennis balls on the inside and stuffed animals.
Good idea.
And the dog just,
You can make a nice tug toy out of it too, and then throw it.
I play tug
Not
with
me,
it.
not my dogs.
No, your dogs are different. Maybe your clients' dogs.
I'll tell my clients about it though.
Yeah. I've had to really adjust my, you know, how you think like, oh, we're either going to play a possession game or a retrieval game. And then you get a dog like Luna downstairs and you're like, I'll play any game. You want to play with a shoe? I'll play with a shoe. I don't care. You know, like,
That doesn't
I
mean
think-
you should be playing with your
I
shoes.
did not play with a shoe.
I'm just saying.
I did not.
People
but
might say, oh, shoes are an option.
Personal play too. That's one that like people don't explore very often at all. It's like just playing without a toy. Like, does your dog like to wrestle a little bit? Like, I don't know. Like that's actually the opposite of what we were just talking about with like stop, sticking your hands in your dog's mouth. But I will play around with my hands and my dogs and like
Oh, you
mess
do?
around.
Oh, I'm against that.
Sorry.
I think if you're trying to motivate a shut down dog that's like nervous, yeah, play with your hands. Do freaking whatever it takes. And those type of dogs, like, we don't really come across them very much in our, like, I think Jamie and I think dogs that are like shut down and like just very difficult to draw out, have low food motivation. You know, we don't have a lot of those kind of dogs. And I think for a dog like that, like I do think you just got to do whatever it takes. That's what I wanted to say, but you can continue on talking about your hands.
No, that's good. I'm
We're
done.
not batting dogs around, but yeah, no, there's definitely some like, because some dogs, like I definitely work with some pretty fearful dogs that like they won't. It's too too combative for those dogs to play like a game of tug or to like openly like lose themselves and chase after something to like play like a chase and catch game. But they will engage a little bit with like, I don't even know, like little like finger piano type kind of movements on the ground, like little like, I don't know, like, almost like little bugs like on the ground and like.
I get it.
Oh
no, I get it. I use a toy on a line. I think is my go-to. And
I love toys on lines. Yeah.
But I think that's my go-to versus, I mean, sometimes I can catch myself doing it with a puppy, but I think I do it to woo them in the beginning, and then I redirect to a toy right away.
I like it.
I don't know. Have, a lot of kids in the household, I just worry about it.
Yeah. Well, kids make things a
It's
little
But I think
true,
you have
yeah.
a different
Kids-
population, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you don't have...
When you work with fearful shutdown dogs like Val, I don't want to throw her name here. She's not here. But, Val is somebody that we refer fearful shutdown dogs to because I'm just like, I just can't. Like, I want to be able to, but the amount of time that it takes and the amount of money that you have to charge, like her business structure is set up for it and she makes the time for it and she charges for it and she has like the skills to be patience of Job. So it's just a different, like, it's a different demographic, I guess.
I'm not knocking it.
No.
I told you, I'm open to things.
All right.
I am. I'm just old. I don't know if I'm just old.
Lori's kicking me under the table.
No, no.
Certainly not.
She's
kidding.
comfortably sitting on the futon.
I am very comfortable, actually. Thank you.
Okay. I'm skipping a question here because I want to stick with the puppies because we have a lot of puppy questions from a couple of different people. I guess I'll answer this one. I'll start answering this one. What is your take on hand feeding puppies? So this one is from my cousin who went to a trainer. She's down in Maryland and the trainer was hand feeding for behavior. And that's something that we do a lot when we have puppies. So I would say with puppies, depending on how much time we have during each day, we try to get a majority of their food in through training. So we're training behaviors, specifically just engagement. The puppy's paying attention to us, they get paid. They come when they hear their name, they get paid. So engagement and recall are the big ones for us. And then when I did have my little Rhonda, I was doing a lot of food luring. So food luring into different positions like sits and downs. I didn't do a lot of labeling of behaviors. I just was really working on trying to position her where I wanted her with using the food lure. And, we do a lot of food training with puppies. So one thing I will say is sometimes people get confused and they think that we're just standing there pumping food into the dog's mouth. I don't know if you would agree with me on that one. That's not what hand feeding your dog means. So hand feeding is not you just take their food and instead of them eating out of the bowl, they like eat out of your hands, like cupped kind of close to the ground. Laurie is doing it right now. It's for behavior, right? At the very least engagement. And if we're out socializing, it will be when it's real stimulating. So we'll go to Mahoney's, we'll go to Home Depot, we'll just go outside, go on the street and, feed the pup for looking at us and paying attention to us and not all that really stimulating stuff. So really good question because I think for some people, they cannot get their mind around not feeding their dog out of a dog bowl.
Oh my God.
Yes, and everyone says it is the dog's actual kibble.
Yep.
We use that. So people are like, oh, so his food in the bowl? Yes, that's what we use.
Dump it in your treat pouch.
Sometimes if we go to a more distracting environment, we'll bring better treats, but...
Or mix it up. Put some cheese inside the kibble.
Jackpot it.
Yep.
Get some
Jamie,
liver.
Take.
Yeah, you got to take on this one.
I mean, I feel exactly the same way. I still, even with my adult dogs, like we're working towards stuff. I'm working on teaching them new things. we're using their food. Every night if I can. I mean, if I'm tired, I don't. But even then, even if I am going to feed a dog out of a bowl, especially like an adult dog, I know this was a question specific about puppies because we're on puppies right now.
Yeah,
but
it's been a while since you've had a puppy, so you can.
It has. But even if I'm feeding out of a bowl in the evening, mornings I'm a little bit more lazy. But in the evening, like I still ask for really, really strong, good behaviors and I release them to a jackpot. They're still working for their meal, but like sometimes I'm lazy and they get a jackpot and it just strengthens the behaviors. But yeah, no, and with foster dogs too, I'll do completely hand feeding because everybody wants their dogs to love them for them. We're going to be best friends because I'm such an amazing person. But really, like...
Yeah, that's what I say. That's the first thing I say.
Oh,
You're
honey,
going to love me because I'm amazing.
I do love you because you're amazing.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm not a dog.
but the reality is, unless you're Lori, dogs love you for the food. And they will eventually, it's how you build a relationship with them. It's how you build your entire communication system. And that communication system is how you build your relationship.
Yeah, and it takes time, people.
Yeah. Every time, like I tell people, I'm like, do you have food on you? We're going to do like a long line walk for our lesson today. And they go, yeah, I've got food. And they're wearing like skin tight jeans. And I go, where's your food? And they go, it's in my front pocket. And I go, what do you have, like 5 kibbles in there? What is in there?
What do you have in there?
You got 5 kibs? We need more.
I was like, go get their entire meal and put it. Here's my treat pouch. I see you don't have one. Here's my treat pouch. Put it on you. Go fill it with your dog's whole meal. And they're like, what? All of it? We're going to do the entire meal on this walk. Go put their entire meal. Like, put extra just in case.
Imagine working an 8-hour day and the boss is like, $5. Shut up. $5. That's all you're getting for this long ass walk, having to listen to me talk to you. 5 small, insignificant kibble.
You want me to walk right next to you?
Next to other dogs, the neighbors' dogs, trucks, trash cans. Some dogs are afraid of those.
Stop to pee when you say.
Oh my God. Just put out in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's the thing that gets confusing for people is they don't understand. Like, it's not a forever. If you do it correctly, it's not forever. Like,
it feels like forever, but it's not.
But it's not.
You just
and
have
you'll
to do
really
it in
be
the
glad you
beginning.
did it.
You really will. Oh my God. What a great point. You'll be so glad that you did it. I am so thankful that my dog is in love with me because he's weird, and if he wasn't in love with me, his life would stink. He wouldn't have any freedom. It's like, and we really hunker down when we have a puppy in this house. We really do.
Yeah.
And it does pay off. And when people ask us, it's like, we're seriously not giving you any advice that we don't do ourselves.
Oh, for sure.
And then one more thing is that, what do people say to me? Oh, the ones who don't. So the ones who are weary of feeding the dog for a job well done, they start feeding the dog for not doing what they requested. So sometimes a parent will say down, the dog will sit, and then I see the parent give the dog food.
But they
and
did
I said
something.
I said, but he didn't lay down. You asked him to lay down. Like, I'm willing to put out, but you have to do what I ask for the love of Pete. This is how we start to, what are you doing? So the people who are most against feeding all the time, they're just feeding for really, for unasked for behaviors. And yeah, stop it. Okay, that's all.
I like it.
Also, I wanted to add one more thing. You don't have to pump treats into your dog's face if they're facing away from you just because you don't know what else to do. Okay, so like if you're just standing there and your dog is just chilling out next to your side and they're being a good girl or boy and you're having a conversation with somebody, you don't have to just keep feeding them for no reason. That's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum because we do a lot of our clients come to group class. We use food a lot for training, but that's part of the weaning off process. Like once your dog's starting to act like a dog, learn how to fade the food. Like what Jamie was saying, like we put that work in the beginning. Like I was doing a class with a customer the other day and I was just talking to them about what we were going to do in class and her dog was facing away and she just reached down and absentmindedly fed her dog. And I said, why did you do that? And she was like, well, I thought that was what I was supposed to do. I said, but why? Tell me why you did it. And she was like, honestly, I didn't even like think about it. So I think that you really do have to take apart what you're doing. Like I am training behaviors right now. I am socializing my dog right now. I am working towards enhancing our relationship. Like there has to be a reason, even if it was like, I just wanted to reward him because whatever, but there should be a why. And I think, again, you don't want to be stuck in the mentality of like, oh, hand feeding my dog means I just dump their kibble into my hand and like use my hand as a substitute for their bowl. Like that's not, that's not what it means. So anyhow. All right, let's take another one. I do believe that we covered all of our puppy questions, which is cool.
You're checking them off.
Yeah,
I'm going down a list right now.
I wanted to do the puppy ones first. Okay, let's do this one. Very common question that I get in class. Somebody did ask it. How do I get a more consistent recall?
I want Jamie to answer this because I can't say it any different ways, I don't think.
I'll do my best.
Okay. And hit it.
I mean, for me, a recall, it starts with your markers. Like your markers should be clean. Your dog should have a really positive and strong response to your marker. If you're using a clicker, if you're clicking and your dog's not turning, I think you still have work to do there before you even... you should always be working on some recall, but like that's really for me where it starts. And you should be paying every single time. And also
being the click.
The click, yep. For me, like they're on a long line or a short line to start. Like they don't have to be 15 feet away from you. Start with them like right in front of you and just take a step backwards. Start close. Like, I don't know why everybody goes to like, like the finish line. They're like, let's do it now. Like I let my dog, I've never met this dog before. I just brought it home from the shelter and they go, be free, little one. And they go, my dog doesn't come when called. I don't know why. I'm like, well, you didn't set up your foundations. Your foundations are everything. The line, I don't know why people don't like to use their leash. The leash is, God, it is one of the most important tools you will ever use. Drag a line in the house for a really long time. If you call your dog and they don't come, pick up the handle of the leash. Also, if you're not sure your dog's going to come, set yourself up near the handle of the leash. And then you go, hey, buddy, come. And they go, no thanks. And you go, cool, but I'm already here. And you put a little pressure on the leash. And then when they turn and come to you, mark and reward. Really, really simple stuff, but you should be doing it everywhere all the time. Use your tools for longer than you think you need them.
Yes.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go home. That was great.
I'm telling you,
Yes.
right? No, it's because
Yeah.
I'm like, are you telling the truth? How long did you work on it for? Well, to be honest with you, I probably stopped a little early. And
yeah. And if you can't bet your life on, or your dog's life on the fact that they're going to recall, they're not ready.
Yeah, I know one thing that really throws people off is when the dog recalls in the house, recalls in their yard, then they go out into public and it's like they don't know anything. And my response is they do know how to come when called, but they're blowing you off because the behavior is too weak. It's too weak and the distractions are too high. Like you guys haven't worked on it enough. You haven't reinforced it enough. And when they go out into the world and they're in the woods or they're at a park or they're wherever, like there just isn't enough precedent. And then, maybe the leash is too far away. There's too many distractions. There's not enough proofing. It just takes time, to get to the point where that you have that reliable recall in any environment.
I do try to
weigh in on that.
Yeah, I do try to avoid like that the dog's blowing them off because I feel like it almost makes this like to me it feels combative. Like it changes the way that I know exactly what you mean and I know exactly why you're saying it that way. But I think if you're a person with a dog and you're like, my dog's not listening to me because they're blowing me off, it makes it feel a little bit like the dog's doing something to you almost on purpose.
Right.
Vindictive.
Yeah, and they don't really. So like again, I know what you mean. But just to add on to that, but I also think that dogs are a little bit more contextual than by a little bit, I mean a bit more contextual than we give them credit for, or lack of credit. I don't know exactly how I'm trying to say this, but we have to teach them in all the different scenarios. So every time you add something new, like what you're talking about, when you add the outdoor, if you haven't worked on recall in the field, you have to go backwards several steps and go further back than you think you have to go and teach it there. And it takes a long time to generalize into those places and into all those different spaces and different distractions.
I have to do it here too. I have to do it here too.
Oh, and also every time the picture changes, things like they're like, is that, because I feel like dogs are guessing a lot more as well than we think they know, and they're kind of guessing. And we go, yeah, they got it. But they're not 100% yet. I don't know.
And I think parents are less likely to follow through in public because they're embarrassed. And they don't want to give a little tug on the leash in front of other people, or they have social pressure. Oh, let the dogs play. Go ahead. Take them off the leash. And they're just not, they just don't feel comfortable doing it in the more outside world, or if it's not in their backyard. They lose the opportunity. They end up losing the leash, or they end up taking it off. Oh, he'll be fine. They're playing in a neighbor's yard, and the neighbor's yard isn't fenced in, and they think that their dog will keep the other dog in the vicinity.
Every time.
And it doesn't. And now they're running across the road. So you should always feel comfortable working on your recall wherever, and don't feel social pressure to take the leash off. Because
that's where they learn to blow you off for real. As they go, well, this is an optional thing. And
you're
in
yelling.
this environment, like, I don't need to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank. Like the pitch gets worse and
A little
worse.
panicky.
You can't. And now the dog knows that in that area, it definitely, it's an option to continue to run away, or just continue to follow what he wants to follow, and not answer you.
You know what's a really fun game for dogs? Keep away.
I know.
My God.
So the more committed you are to playing that game, the more into that game they probably are going to become.
And there's a lot of, it's so difficult to get someone to put a long line on their dog. I just hear a lot of, like, even when I go out with a dog on a line, I would say maybe 2 out of 5 times somebody will say, well, that's a really long leash. And like, for me, I can handle it because I have dogs on long lines all the time. It's not a big deal for me. It's normal. But for somebody who's training their dog, and maybe somebody who sees their friend's Labrador or Golden Retriever that never had to be on a long line because they have really good pack drive and they just kind of were born with like a wonderful recall, their dog who has different genetics, and maybe they didn't get the dog as a puppy or whatever, maybe they're going to have their dog on a long line for like 6 months to a year to 2 years, and they're just not willing to put that work in because they have this, what looks like a life jacket on their dog. When in reality, you just have to do what needs to be done. People, like, seriously, if your dog needs to be on that long line for longer than you are comfortable with, like, well, it is what it is. Like, that's your ripcord. That's your way of, like Jamie was saying, like, reinforcing the recall. You can pick it up and you can tug on the line and make it happen if you need to in any environment. So don't be too quick to ditch that thing. Get a good quality one.
Yeah.
And don't say the dog's name repetitively throughout the day and never make them come to you.
With no reward.
Yep. Maybe pick a different word for your recall rather than their name.
Oh, we make nicknames.
Lassie,
for
sit.
everything.
Lassie, down. Lassie, come.
Yeah.
Lassie,
No.
No.
Someone refer to a dog's name as just their shitty recall word. I've never forgotten that. It's so good. Yeah. I also think that other thing too is, like, not every dog can be off leash.
Oh, yes. You're totally right.
Like,
Oh, Leah's in church again.
I know. It's true.
But I'm sorry to say it, but your dog they're going to have a good life. They can be on a long line. You can have a great time together, but like, not every dog is going to be safe to be off leash. Period. End of story.
Then
like,
you see lost dog leash attached. Well, that went awry, didn't
Okay,
it?
but how often do you
their
see
little
that?
like 3-foot leash. They're like, they were on a leash. Like,
Well, that, it just drives me crazy. I was talking to a customer the other day, and she was like, I was helping this woman try to find her foster dog in the fells. I'm like, what person gets a foster dog and then lets them off leash in the fells? I'm like, your job is to keep the dog alive. Like, if you're fostering a dog, your job is
kind of your
to
only
keep
job.
them alive.
That's what I
Like,
say to Leah. I'm like, escape risk? Our job is to keep them alive. Anyway.
Okay. That was a good one. All right. Let me just, I'm trying to make timestamps to save myself some time. All right. So.
Fancy.
All right. I'm going to let Lori do this one. I love the way that this question is worded. So, Lori, what would possess anyone to breed dogs?
Love this question so much.
It's funny.
I feel like we should give it to Jamie.
No, I want.
She's very excited.
All right, Jamie, why don't you start? You start us off.
Oh my goodness gracious. Okay.
As the owner of non-bred dogs.
Yeah. So I have only ever had rescue dogs, and I'll tell you what, there is something really awesome about that, and there's something, you know, like it's a really cool thing to see a dog kind of bloom into what they become and what they can become. But I am a big proponent for well-bred, responsibly, ethically bred dogs. And the reason for that is sometimes you need to know what you're getting for a lot of reasons. Sometimes you have a purpose for that dog. Sometimes you've got, you know, someone in the household where you can't kind of roll the dice. I mean, one of the things that we were talking about earlier, we were talking about Ruben. You're saying something like he could take care of himself out in the world, and you even got him as a puppy, you know. But like a rescue dog, even if they're a puppy, you're still kind of rolling the dice a little bit. You know, there's a lot of things there. How was the first 8 weeks of that dog's life? What was the mom's stress level when she was pregnant with those puppies, guys? That stuff matters.
Her nutrition.
Her nutrition. I mean, man, there's so many things that impact a dog for their entire life, from start to finish, that start before the puppies are even conceived. Because if you're talking about nutrition and stress levels, that stuff is there before those puppies even, well, I guess, were thought of, if you will. But that stuff, and like, what's the mom like with the babies? Was she nice to the babies? Did she try to kill the babies? Like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
All that stuff matters. If you've got a feral dog that gets brought up from the south with a litter of puppies, I'm really sorry. I'm going to get hate mail. But like, those puppies are learning how to be with humans from their mother. And if that mother is scared of humans, you're likely going to have some suspicious puppies that turn into some suspicious adults. I mean, it's critical socialization period. Like, it's a thing. So when you have a specific need and you don't have, or maybe you just don't have the energy, like you're like, I can't roll the dice this time. I just need to know what I need to know. I need to know that this dog is going to be, you know, likely, because obviously genetics are always a crapshoot no matter what you're looking at. But you have a better idea with well-bred dogs that are tested, temperament tested. They are health tested beyond just embark, not just brought to the vet. Like, you're talking like x-rays on the hips and the elbows and cardiac and eyes. And there's a lot that goes
Hips,
into
heart,
a well-bred
elbows,
dog.
eyes.
Yeah. So, right, like maybe you've got someone with autism in your household. They don't need a service dog, but like they
need a stable dog.
They need a stable dog. Young children, you want a stable dog. There's just a lot of reasons. Dog trainers. Sometimes you just need a dog that you can put out with clients. You need a demo dog. Like, there's a lot of reasons that rescue isn't always the best answer. And I say that as someone who has had 4 rescue dogs. I have a rescue cat. Like, I have a lot of rescues in my life. But there's a lot of good reasons for breeding dogs.
Yeah. Like, we were out last night, and one of the people we were out with made the comment, like, well, you know, rescue dogs have more genetic diversity, so why wouldn't you want a healthier dog? And I think on the surface level, that makes a lot of sense to people. You know, they think, okay, a rescue dog isn't a part of this really small gene pool, which we don't know that. Like, I don't know if Ruben was a product of a sibling breeding. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And, you know, again, it kind of makes sense from a practical point of view. Like, if you're just looking at the issue from space and you're like, well, if you take the whole gene pool and then you have 2 random dogs get together, the chances of the recessive genes getting, you know, passed on are lower. But as Jamie is saying, there's so much more that goes into that. You know, the stress level of the parents as the puppies are conceived, and then as a mother is, you know, eating and resting and feels safe when she's, the puppies are in gestation. Like all of these things are really, really, really important, and you don't have any control over that when you rescue a dog. Additionally, I wanted to make mention that if you're into reading, I don't know if you've read the first 2 chapters of Animals Make Us Human by Temple Grandin.
Yes.
But she goes on, I think, in the second chapter about how rescue dogs, if they're in perpetuity, so if they're a few generations, they start to become, it doesn't take many generations for them, to develop darker coloring, because predators in the wild do not generally turn out to be white or light colored, unless you're talking about like polar bears or snow leopards, like from the poles. I learned that from I think Lee Davidson, who's really great if anybody is interested in learning more about like band dogs. But he had a whole kind of rant about the color white. So as rescue dogs are, kind of multiplying without any intervention, they tend to get darker in color, and they also tend to start exhibiting like meta signals of wolves. So like things like piloerection, lipping, tail signaling, ears, posturing, all these other things. They really start to become more primal in nature. And bred dogs, they don't tend to. They actually have less of that type of signaling. So I just think that knowing that information is also kind of just really makes me appreciate bred dogs a little bit more, because I do feel like we just have so much more control over their temperament. Obviously, there are breeds that have health issues, and we don't have to talk about that. But when you have a really small gene pool, it does make things come up, and that's why we have testing for hip size and elbows and heart and all that other stuff. But as far as the question itself goes, what would possess anyone to breed dogs? So if we think about it from a breeder's point of view, Laurie, I know you've had a litter. What is kind of like the motivation if you become really bonded to a specific breed, and then kind of wanting to breed them?
I think that people have a dog that they love, and they got it from a breeder, and they think, my God, I would love, this could be an ambassador of the breed. I would like these qualities to be passed on. And that's how it all starts. And then maybe they work with the breeder, because you should have permission from the breeder if you're taking one of their dogs and studying it out, or having the mother. And it's really just the want to have a great representation of the breed multiplied. It's a labor of love. I don't have the nerve for it, because I know that not every dog in the litter is always stellar. And I think that health problems do arise even if you have tested parents. And I can't deal with the heartbreak of having a dog that's just not quite right. So I cannot do it. And I do think it's a labor of love, and it takes skill and the ability to be able to match dogs temperament-wise. And I mean, sometimes you're really just trying to find flawless dogs. You're trying to find this high drive temperament, and and then you're homing these dogs, and you have to make sure, is this dog going to go to a working home? Is this dog going to go to a pet home? Because some of the qualities you may look for in a working breed do not fit a pet family. And they can't deal with this dog who is ripping up the entire house because they're completely bored. And then you start to have temperament issues on a dog who is otherwise normal, who was like a dog that just needed to be worked. So I do not have the gumption to be a trainer, but there's a reason we have, seeing eye dogs. These dogs are from breeders. There's some breeders that just specialize in therapy dogs. These are dogs we need out there. These are good representations of the breed. That's why we do it. If you see a breeder and they're having multiple litters a year, you have to ask yourself, what's the motivation behind this? A lot of breeders don't make a ton of money because you are paying some huge vet bills. You're paying for the health of the mother and ultrasounds and vitamins, and shots for the puppies, and it's
Titling those dogs. So you
Yes.
have a lot of training time.
so people say, why do you do these shows? Like you come home with a ribbon, but if it's a breeder and these dogs are getting all these titles, it shows that that dog has workability, and that's a dog you might want to have in your home. That's a dog who was able to bond and work with another human and showed that they have gumption. Like, so every breeder wants, I mean, if a breeder gave a dog to a home and they're doing frisbee or they're doing AKC obedience or scent work or anything, dog diving, that breeders love that. They know that their dog is in a home where the dog is experiencing, and what is the word I'm looking for? They're stimulated.
Fulfilled.
Yeah, it's a nice, fulfilling life for your dog. It's great.
Yeah.
So I don't have the ovaries for it, but I don't,
Yeah, it's hard
It's
because
hard.
you might have a wonderful relationship too, like with a female dog, and you could lose her having puppies,
yeah,
or you could have a puppy
mastitis.
that you could have a puppy out of that litter that is a hellion,
Yeah,
and that came out of your dog,
Yep.
so it takes a certain level of emotional fortitude.
that happened
And-
to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it happened to Lori. It takes a level of emotional fortitude, and like I've never whelped a litter of puppies, but sounds like a long day.
I
long,
loved
stressful
actually.
day.
I would probably love to just take care of a litter,
Mm.
not be responsible for the finding homes and
Taking them back if they don't work in the home that they went to.
yeah. A good breeder will always take the dog back. That is a sign of a good breeder.
Yeah.
You should have a contract with the breeder. No matter what, they should take their dog back. They should want their dog back.
Well, I think that's the other important thing to think about too. If you're talking about like breeding versus rescue, is like people talk about how why are we breeding dogs when all these dogs are ending up in rescue? We're just putting more dogs in rescue. A good, responsible breeder, their dogs aren't ending up in rescue.
Absolutely.
They're
Yeah.
not
Thank you.
contributing to that problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be fair, I don't see a lot of purebred dogs in rescues. I know that there are certain rescues that have purebred dogs. Like I know there's a golden retriever rescue, I think out in Hudson, and there are different like Rottweiler rescues that don't have brick and mortar places, but they are dogs that sometimes wind up in unable to stay in their homes. And there are certainly unethical breeders. So that's a problem. That's a big problem. But I think that a good, well-bred dog is imperative to keeping dogs in homes with people. I think that if you talk to any trainer, if a family wants to buy a dog, most of them, okay, go get a lab or a golden doodle. There's a reason for that. They're social dogs. They, are going to be able to hopefully abide with children. Like kids are really difficult. Kids and dogs are very, very difficult. And if you're rescuing a dog and you just don't know a lot of information, it's important to at least recognize that before you make that commitment. And that was a big part of the podcast that I did last week with Katrina and Sam. So not to discourage anybody from rescuing a dog. I have a rescue dog.
Rescue dogs are
Yeah.
amazing.
I've had one in the past.
Jamie has rescue dogs. Laurie's had rescue
They're my
dogs.
heart. Like I could start just thinking about that makes me want to cry. I love them so much.
And there's just pros
Yeah.
and cons. And
Yep.
I think having well-bred dogs are, the reason why dogs are in our homes to begin with. Dogs became part of our lives because they didn't bite us and cause problems. If they did, they never would be domesticated. So when they do bite us and cause problems, we need to treat that as an anomaly. That should be rarely happening. So I think a good breeding program will prepare us for that. I know all three of us are like,
it should be an anomaly,
yeah,
but
it's not. It's not. It's a huge problem, and that's what
Ask me
keeps
what
us
I do all
busy.
day.
Yeah, it's what keeps us busy as trainers. But at the same time, it would be great if it wasn't happening so much, because guess what? People are suffering. People are suffering, and people are important.
Yeah.
Even to us dog folks, people are
love people,
important.
yeah.
I love people.
I do too. I don't want anyone to have a miserable experience with a dog. I want them to be happy.
Yep. So, okay. So we have one more question. I have a few random thoughts on here, Laurie.
Oh, you can just put those.
Okay. The last question is, pretty straightforward, and I probably should have stuffed this with the puppy questions, but here it is.
Here we go again.
Ugh.
Okay, it is.
I wrote
If
the
you
list, so it's
feed
my fault.
raw, how do you train? Jamie, you feed raw, so
I sure do.
How do you train?
Lay a few chickens.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Do you got chicken wings in your?
Yeah, I just keep raw chicken wings. No, so I mean, I have a couple tricks. So, especially with puppies, but they make special treat pouches. So if you feed raw and it's like a pureed mush, for example, they make treat pouches that are silicone. Just put a rubber glove on, and you can just click and feed. It's that simple.
Put your rubber on.
Put your rubber on, guys.
Like a rubber glove, like you get out of 100 rubber gloves,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a doctor's sterile
Super
rubber glove.
cheap rubber
No
glove
love,
that
no
you
love.
can throw away when you're done. Sorry, environmentalists. I'm one of you, but I love my dogs.
Well, you can wash it after you're done
you
and
could
reuse
go back
it.
to the.
That's
You could
not
go
okay.
back to trying times where we clean our aluminum foil, and
I save mine. I'm a psycho.
that's all right.
throw it out
I try to be as good
when
as
she's
possible.
not looking.
And I try not to generally make these recommendations because I have other recommendations as well. The other thing that I do, because I mentioned earlier, I do try to train my dogs their evening meals. I'm not successful every night. I don't claim to be successful every night, but I try my hardest to. I use they make freeze dried raw food. It's a little bit more expensive. You could do part of their meal as they're training. You don't have to do the entire meal. Ziwi Peak is one option. That's like an air dried raw food. Stella and Chewy makes freeze dried raw that you can use. And then you can use their little dust at the bottom of your bag. And oh my gosh, my dogs will work for dust. They will, I mean, they're very happy for it. It tastes great to them. So those are two big ones. The other thing that you can do, if your dog can get used to it, those little squeeze bottles that little kids use to eat like applesauce out of? You can put your pureed raw food into that and click and squeeze it into their mouth.
All right.
And then you also get away from having your fingers bit. So there's your question one answered
you go.
again.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that. Full
Right?
circle.
Full circle.
We took care of it.
Yeah, we took care of everybody.
We should have asked this one first.
No, I think that worked out swimmingly.
Swimmingly.
All right. Folks, wonderful questions that you sent in here. We really appreciate your interest in hearing our thoughts, and I think that we pretty succinctly answered all of these. So we will occasionally try to put the question box up again and then answer the questions as they come in, even if we have to repeat some of them, because I'm sure we were, non-conclusive. We probably could go on and on about these topics for an entire episode, but we hope that this was helpful. If you like what you're listening to, please rate and review the podcast so more people can hear what we are saying. If you're into it, I think that collectively we have enough experience to stand behind what we are saying. Jamie is nodding her head.
hope so.
She's like, I hope by now.
So. I know. I hope so. I'm just going to retire now.
But yes, once again, we really appreciate you listening to FitPet Boston Talks, and we will see you next time.
See you next time. And now for FitPet Boston
After hours.
After hours.